Every generation needs a revolution, Jimmy. The American dream is just that. Just a dream. War is a continuation of politics, only by other means. Politics is a continuation of economics by other means. This is our bank. This is our war. And this is our plan of attack.
Banks have become an essential threat to our democracy. So consider this justice.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station on the internet. Please help support this station so this battle can continue forward. Revolution Radio! The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Welcome to Sacred Matrix, a divine paradigm of love and universal consciousness, with your host, Janet Kira Lessin and Dr. Sasha Lessin.
Together, we transform the world.
And now, here are your hosts, Janet Kira and Dr. Sasha Lessin.
Aloha, everybody, and welcome to to Sacred Matrix on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. I'm co-host Sasha Alex Lessin, and our guest Russell Scott Brinegar is here, and our producer is Thomas Becker, and I think we're all here. Sasha, are you there? We were getting people on the show
I'm here.
from parts of the world. Okay, excellent. Yes. So, Dr. Lessin, Sasha,
yes.
You have been reading Russell's book and studying it like it's the Bible. Can you tell us something about the book and about Russell, what you've learned, and then we'll bring on Russell.
Okay. I'd be happy to. So this is the book that saved me years and years and years of work, because Russell did the work for me. And
Subscriber you have dialed is not in service. If you feel you've received this message in error, please hang up and try your call again later. Message MN18356.
Sorry for this interruption. That's artificial intelligence, and they're not very intelligent. Okay, we don't know what that was about. Go ahead.
So what I want to say is that Russell has systematically gone, first with a dramatic episode of his own where he has had a near-death experience, and he was able to experience his own future self and his soul and all kinds of wonderful, he's totally opened up his mind. And he spent years and years and years reading everything and interviewing everybody and going deeper and deeper and deeper. And what he got to is an incredible idea that it seems the overwhelming evidence is that we're moving toward a singularity where everything is coordinated. And one of the most interesting things to me that I've been reading lately is how during the late 70s and so forth, when there was a congruence of cattle mutilations and humans abducted for anal probes and blood and other fluid extractions and things like that, that if that was part of a hybridization program, in all probability, and those hybrids are among us now, and they're the young leaders and the middle-aged leaders of our country. And from my perspective, it looks like a blessing, because I like these young people. That's one big thing that's really been on my mind. And that
subscriber you have dialed is not in service. If you feel you've received this message in error, please hang up and try your call again later. Message.
Okay, Ahmad, I'm going to give you another number. I don't know which number you dialed, so I'm going to put both numbers. Can you hear me, Ahmad?
Yeah, that was his Skype.
Okay, let's just
Believe it
try
or
the
not.
phone.
He must
Try
be
the
using
phone.
Skype on his phone is what the problem is.
Okay, I'm going to give you two phone numbers. Okay, 1 second. Sorry for the interruption, everybody, but there's two phone numbers, and I forget which one he wants you to call. Sorry.
So the other thing
Okay,
I
keep
want to
talking.
say. Oh, thank you, Janet. My wife says I can keep talking. Listen, everybody. I'm trying to tell you that this book, it's called, Overlords of the Singularity, is one of the most important books for anyone that's interested in this whole paranormal UFO phenomenon. And so one of the most interesting things to me as a historian is how, and as a psychologist, is how people that are the ones that they use, the metaphors that they use in
Hello?
all these study.
There we go. Now we have Scott. Okay, just hang on, Scott, while Sasha does your intro.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So
Go ahead. Try again.
Things one of the things that I really like in Russell's book is this whole idea that people, because it's the same thing I get as a Jungian psychologist, people have their own symbols in which they interpret whatever is going down. And if you have aliens, or be they living or mechanical, who can scan the contents of our minds, which is obvious from lots and lots of reports that they can, and then project back to us a cover story in terms of the metaphors that work for us. So if you're religious, you'll get angels. Ray Hernandez's wife got the Virgin Mary. Janet gets Anunnaki. I talk to my dad sometimes. You get it? So it's like whatever form it works for you. Anyway, Russell, I love your book. What do you want to rap about?
Well, I'm really fascinated. Well, first of all, what you were just saying, I believe, is correct. The Jungian version, higher intelligences do have the capability of understanding what's in our psyche, and if we need to experience something, it's tailor fit to us depending on where our mentation is. The type of symbols that we relate to, as you mentioned, whether it was religious in the form of an angel or an ascended master or whatever it is, if they're trying to communicate with us and give us an experience, it's tailor fit to our own mentality. And this seems to be evolving over time, from ancient times to the present, depending on how advanced we are. A lot of the flying saucer sightings back in the 40s and 50s were very different from what we see today, and a lot of the sightings that we see today almost appear to be alive, and they're glowing in different fashions, and they can blink in and out of existence. So our consciousness and our mentation has evolved, in the last 70 years, so the presentation of what we need to experience is a little different.
Wow, that's wonderful. Yeah.
But I'm fascinated by this recent development. What do you think of Tom DeLonge's To the Stars Academy of Arts and Sciences?
I was going to cue that up for Sasha. Did you get to watch that, sweetheart? Tom DeLonge Stars. No, but go ahead. Tell our listeners about it. And
okay, well, it's really fascinating because all of us in this community who are interested in the UFO phenomenon understand there's a core reality to it, but we also understand there's a lot of profiteering and disinformation floating around, to where unless a person's really persevering, they could write the whole subject off. But I find it, and a lot of other people that I know find it challenging to dig through the Hall of Mirrors and find that core of reality, because it definitely does exist. Well, in this presentation that Tom DeLonge just did publicly, I watched it today, and I was actually quite impressed. And I didn't expect to be impressed, because I heard, through Facebook and my news feed, various people were saying that, it's a big money-making thing and all that. But he's got Jim Simovan, who is the co-founder, and he's a career spy and is the CIA strategist. He's got Chris Mellon, who's career Department of Defense, Hal Puthoff, the creator of psychic spy programs, Steve Justice, the director Advanced Systems at Skunkworks, and Luis Elizondo, the Office of the Secretary of Defense. So, I mean, he's got some really high-powered people sitting there. And Tom DeLonge, this was my first exposure to him, and I feel like I'm a pretty good judge of character, and he seems to me like a sincere truth seeker who's trying to find a way to roll out some form of disclosure. And the really cool thing about it was that they're incorporating entertainment. I've been really dismayed in the last few years about any science fiction that's coming out into the theaters, because it seems like it's all orchestrated by the military-industrial complex. I know that video games and the popularity of video games has produced movies that are kind of similar, but it's almost like there's a little meek and mild story embedded in 2 hours worth of bombs exploding and people killing each other. It's very violent. Yeah. And I've been longing for years, for number one, the case studies and the UFO cases, for them to be dramatized in a fictionalized sort of sense with modern special effects. I mean, can you imagine how cool that would be to see the Cash Landrum incident or the Rendlesham incident, or any number of classic cases being depicted in film with good actors and good special effects? I would love to see that. So this entertainment element that he's bringing in, along with the science and aerospace, is a really good idea. And Chris Mellon actually spoke of a 2004 UFO event that was captured aboard the USS Nimitz. They've got an actual photograph of a non-terrestrial vehicle that was picked up 4 days earlier on a Spy 1 radar. And he comes out and basically says there's nothing to prove here. These are just facts that need to be properly evaluated. So you've got a high-level career Department of Defense guy standing up there showing you a picture of an actual alien spacecraft saying that the phenomena is real. So that in and of itself, is at least partially, the form of disclosure that I was looking for. And then Lou Elizondo came out and said the phenomena is indeed real, and I thought a tear was going to fall down his face when he said it.
Wow.
And then Steve Justice, the head of aerospace, he said a really cool quote. I'm using this. He says, if someone is laughing at what you say, chances are you're standing in the future. So all of these guys are like a team effort to roll out secret technologies, cutting edge stuff, and along with an entertainment element. And if you look at the condition of the mass population here in America, they need to be entertained, and it needs to be palatable to them. I've often wondered, is the president going to come out with an alien gray and announce that it's real? And I just imagine people saying, oh, that was CGI, that was fake, that didn't happen. Or, if intelligence officers say, sorry, we've been lying to you for 70 years, this is what we've got, that would be such a shock to the system that wouldn't be good. So I think that what Tom DeLonge is doing is a product of a think tank that involves some very high-level people, because they've got secrets to share, but they don't really know how to do it. And I think they're choosing to kind of slowly unroll some of the stuff that they've got out into the public domain. So I'm actually hopeful.
Yeah, this is just like what Enki would say. This would be this is exactly what Enki was saying. The age of Aquarius should be where art saves society. Art saves society. That's it. Entertainment is cool if it's beautiful and well done.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to what they come up with.
Can you hear me? I want to read a little bit from this. This is the Rolling Stone, but Tom DeLonge announces To the Stars Academy of Arts and Science. So, To the Stars Academy of Arts and Science will encompass 3 divisions: science, aerospace, and entertainment. And its team has an impressive resume. According to a statement, several of its team members have worked extensively within the intelligence and scientific fields, including some who have worked in and with CIA and the Department of Defense. Imagine having 25th century science this century, Dr. Hal Puthoff, the company's co-founder and vice president of scientific technology, said in a statement. He's an advisor to NASA, the Department of Defense, and has done research for a variety of entities, including General Electric, NSA, and Stanford University. We've mobilized a team of experienced, connected, and passionately curious minds to reveal and decode information that can challenge the limits of traditional theory, such as the study of UAP, which stands for Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon Technologies. Together, we're bringing transformative science and engineering out of the shadows to introduce profound possibilities. So, Russell, do you have the link to? Did you watch the presentation? I didn't have time to watch it, but
it's available on YouTube.
Presentation?
Yeah, I posted it to my Facebook page. It's on YouTube.
Okay.
The live version. They even got a countdown. Like a 50-second countdown. Then it starts. It's an excellent presentation. I was very impressed with it.
Oh, good. Well, we'll have to watch that, and I'll put that on my Facebook page. But I can't get to my Facebook page. They blocked me. Anybody out there know how to get Janet's Facebook unblocked? I would really appreciate. Write to me at aquarianradio@gmail. I've been trying for 3.5 weeks, and they have blocked me. So anyway, so that's exciting. And then there was something from Dr. Michael Salla about Elon Musk and his new transportation systems, not only getting us to Mars by 2025, but a new type of airline which will go out into space and back in, allowing us to go around the planet, like halfway around the planet in 1 hour. So everything else is going to be shortened significantly. It'll take 10 minutes to get from Maui to California, 20 minutes.
Well, that would certainly put the flat Earth argument to rest, wouldn't it?
Right, and he's going to do it in, what were we going to say, honey? Go ahead.
Sell airlines short.
Right. He said he'll make it the flights the same as the economy flights. So,
wouldn't that be something if in the course of our lifetime it actually becomes affordable to go up into space and look at the Earth from space? That'd be neat.
Yeah, everybody's going to want the window seats. But the craft going to Mars is, people have been on Gus and the other UFOs are identified. I guess if people on it, they're identifying them as spacecraft. They say that they can see out, so it's all a window. So maybe Tom, with this revelation, will get in touch with the ETs and they'll finally say, yeah, they got it, we can come out and talk, and we'll all be able to see when we go from here to there, or we don't even have to get into craft and you just use teleportation. So what's exciting with this last couple of days is we may really achieve a Star Trekian society in this century, in this year, this next couple of years, within our lifetime. That would be a miracle. That would be like the ending of Star Wars, where everybody was, trumpets were flaring and everybody was shiny and bright and celebrating.
Yeah, I would love it if within the course of the remainder of this lifetime, if things transform into what used to be considered science fiction, replicators and smart matter and anti-gravity machines being rolled out. That'd be great.
And, of course, the implications are not only will they have the sciences, but the medical advances, and we may be able to live much, much, much longer, if not, achieving physical immortality, but at least longevity that we lack now. You know, how do people live? How many people reach 120? Nobody. That's what we promised to us in the Bible, and nobody reaches it. So.
Yeah, the medical advances are astounding. I mean, they're using 3D printers to grow biological material in the lab and, putting in people. So who knows, people like myself that have a few stents placed, we might get a whole replicated system, surrounding the heart and live to, several hundred or 1,000 years. Even a lot of people alive today, might live to see that day where people start living, far in advance of what we're used to seeing.
For me, one of the most interesting things that can come down with true openness, true disclosure, is the openness inside to empathy with other people, which is a prerequisite for our moving up into a galactic civilization anyway. So the basic thing, besides all these wonderful transportation and health things, is what we can do about living right now, opening our hearts up to all our fellow creatures. And that's, to me, that's what's really exciting.
Well, I'm with you because it's something I've been thinking about very deeply. I retired on September 16th, and I'm amazed that having the extra time, the opportunity to go inward. I'm reading a book with a fellow that I hooked up on Facebook named William Truerneat, and he's got a whole series of books that were allegedly channeled from the Zeta race to a spirit medium named Paul Hamden. And this first one I'm reading is called A Primer of the Zeta Race, and it actually has a lot of good things in there that resonate with me about not striving with your fellow man and not getting into all these little debates and arguments and stuff, because even Corey Good on a Cosmic Disclosure episode mentioned that people in 3D like to do that with each other. It's like all of us are living in a unique subjective reality, and what we have the tendency to do, and I think it's fear-based, is when we run into somebody that thinks and feels very differently than ourselves, there's a panic that if we only bring the right logical argumentation to him, he'll see things the way that I do. And that's not even necessary. You can just let everybody have their little subjective reality that's different from yours and accept them. Because if we can't do that here in 3D reality with other human beings, it's going to be really strange if you bring in extraterrestrial civilizations, because they may have a completely different way of looking at the cosmos. So you have to kind of relinquish your ego and your desire for everybody to be on the same page with you. And personally, I find that extremely difficult, but I'm working on it.
Yeah, one of the things is a mechanism. It's called the mechanism of cognitive dissonance. That once people make a choice, they try to screen out everything that is dissonant and doesn't match with that choice. But the way to get around that is to see whatever you think you ain't, whatever you can't stand in other people, or what you overly admire in other people, are just underdeveloped or unrecognized parts of yourself. And when you come to peace with, say, an assertive part of somebody that bugs you, you might see what your own needs of assertion are, and that makes you relax with other people. So start within. Whatever bugs you or you overly admire is how you separate yourself. And I just love that statement that you said, Russell, about that's what 3D reality is. Trying to prove you're separate, but it's a lie.
Right. And the trick here, if this indeed is some sort of school, which, there's a lot of material out there that indicates that incarnation into 3D reality on Earth is some sort of spiritual school. None of us are perfect. We're all bozos on the bus, trying to figure ourselves out. And apparently that is a big key thing, is to not interfere with another person's free will and not impose your views onto them in an overly harsh fashion. If they're interested, perhaps you can have a civil discussion. But when Facebook first came out, like 8 years ago, I got involved with that. I just thought it was a game, this is an argument game, and I'm pretty good with words, so I can win at this, And, in the process, people get their feelings squashed and stuff, and it's like, wow, I'm really backing off from a lot of that. and trying to post, only positive things and loving feelings out there into the cyberspace, because it can come back to bite you. And that is like one of my old personal quirks is I enjoy a good debate. I enjoy a good argument, but, it can irritate people, if it's gone about in the wrong way. And especially if they only know you as a set of words. If they don't know you personally, you have to be really careful about what you text to somebody.
Yeah.
So
that's
what we're here for. Just, identify the weaknesses within our own selves that prevent us from projecting a totally harmonious existence with other, fellow creatures, and be, like Corey Good says this a lot, be the change that you want to be. And I don't even bother anymore separating fact from fiction, because if you read Shakespeare or, any good work of fiction like Arthur C. Clarke, there's ideas and concepts in there that resonate with me when I read it. So it doesn't even matter to me anymore. How, is this person for real? Is everything they're saying true? No, I just, I listen without judgment. And if something resonates with me, I will adopt it into my psyche. And I find that that's a much less frustrating way to go about listening to some of the whistleblower testimonies and all the people saying things. Just listen without judgment. And if there's something that strikes you as particularly resonating with your spirit, then just adopt it, and nothing else is going to go in anyway. You can spend the rest of your life trying to prove one way or the other if something that somebody said is true or false, or connects with objective reality. And I'm not so much worried about that. Number one, I don't have the time, to do that. But I just remain open and try to listen to people without judgment and accept the things that I can use, and just file the rest into, some file that may be pulled out at a future date or something.
Yeah, people spend a lot of time trying to... Can you guys hear me? People spend a lot of time... Huh? You can't hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
People spend a lot of time...
We can hear you, Jen.
People spend a lot of time trying to rationalize and justify this thing that doesn't really exist called God truth, where there's just everybody has their own personal truth and variations on the theme, and it's okay for them to believe what they believe. And the only thing is, don't hurt me, don't hurt somebody else. Believe what you want to believe. We've been interviewing all these different experiencers and whistleblowers, and they've had a lot of interaction with extraterrestrials on board craft, working alongside of them in the military, been taken, realizing that they're not taken, but they're ambassadors. There's a whole new revelation coming out now. And one of the things is their morality is different than ours. So we have these expectations to inflict our belief systems of reality on extraterrestrials, and they have an entirely different and broader and, perspective than humanity does. And we do that all the time. Americans think they're the best, and they try to inflict their reality and their morality on the rest of the world. But imagine when you go up against extraterrestrials, and they really have a different sense of existence. So it's time that we, get over ourselves and start being objective.
Yeah,
if you say
our
something
concepts of good and evil are probably extremely primitive. And we have a tendency to judge good and evil about whether it's good for us personally or not. And if you are out there in the universe and you're aware of cosmic phenomena or events that a human being doesn't have the perceptual apparatus to even comprehend, some of the actions that a higher intelligence might take would maybe possibly appear evil to us on the surface, but we don't know, because they may be looking down the road at a long-range outcome that is good that we're not able to see. Just like the subject of hybrids, Dr. David Jacob is just horrified over this idea that all these abductions that people have been reporting from the 1960s, have to do with some interjection or manipulation with genes. Well, it's not the first time that an extraterrestrial race has done it, number one. There's been probably several, and we're still here. So at some point, in your recognition that there are higher intelligences interacting with humanity, number one, you got to realize there's nothing you can do about it. They're going to do what they want to do regardless, and hope that, they have some long-range benevolent end. But if some of the children that are being born now, that people like Mary Rodwell are bringing out, that have extrasensory abilities and ability to see different colors and, different sensations and things that are anomalously different than an ordinary human being, perhaps we've been aided and we don't even realize it. And the world of the future, may be inhabited by human containers that have had their genetics altered for the better in some fashion or another.
We were talking with William Whitecrow yesterday, and he's a whistleblower who's been in the secret space program and has had lifelong contact, and he has all this information that most normal people don't have. And, basically we're all hybrids. This is the end of a very experiment that's been going on for millions and millions of years. And, his perception was, well, if they're up-leveling us so we are more able to adapt to this planet and operate on this planet, we are apparently not indigenous to this planet because people get, sunburn and cancers and everything. We're not really adapted to this environment. And so he says, bring it on. If they can help us live longer or healthier on this planet, and we're, not, whatever's going on here, the foods, we can't really digest our food, especially if we get older.
Right.
It seems to be toxic to us. There's some interference here, so there's somebody else that's interfering and helping us adapt to all these things so that we can live life more healthfully. Anyway, so I'll pass it back to you guys. But
well, Dr. Alice Silver has a nice little ebook about that, about humans not being from this planet. And I was even thinking lately, if this 25,920-year cycle that brings on some solar flash event where people of a certain vibrational frequency move on and other people are kind of recycled or to another planet or here or wherever, that may explain some of Michael Cremo's material in his Forbidden Archaeology of finding Homo sapien footprints in 300 million-year-old coal deposits and stuff. There may be populations of Homo sapiens that have existed far into the distant past that have come and gone. It's not like there's one continuous lineage all the way back to, say, 1 billion years ago. But in the last 1 billion years, there may be humans that have been brought here or seeded here. They develop to a point. The Sambartica fire, the Fragile Careti event happens, they ascend and move on. I mean, there may be almost like a factory type existence here, a soul factory, where the purpose is to learn all these lessons, and then at the end of the cycle, you either graduate or you flunk. You got to go back and be recycled somehow.
Yeah, of course, that always brings us to the mystery of who's the Board of Education.
Who's the Board of Education? Yeah, there's a really good question, and that goes back to what I was saying previously. It's like whoever it is, we can't do anything about it. I just hope they're benevolent, and I believe they are. I'm looking at a lot of.
Like in psychology, when we deal with pathological personalities and the like, the first thing we do is we admire the dominant primary personality that the person, be he a thief or a murderer or wimp, whatever, puts out, and we admire that and ask what it does, and ask and until that side feels safe enough to let other parts out. So when you meet an extraterrestrial, the first thing to do is, my teacher's an Angelus Aryan, so I got to tell you, her rules are just show up, pay attention to what has heart and meaning for you, speak your truth without blame or judgment, and be open to results but not attached to them. All you can do is be as open, but that's what you can do every second of life. You die every second or reborn. This is it. It's really cool to think about the future, but I know where it exists right now. It's in my mind. Just this past is all I'm aware of is right now.
Yeah. Outside of right now, everything else is crypto reality.
Yeah.
It's just a hidden unknown.
Right. So, yeah, and that's a hard concept to explain to people, that bring it into the now. But if you find yourself panicking or stressing out, and I do this all the time, I'm guilty of this, but if I bring it into the now, and like in this moment, I'm alive and I'm safe. I don't have fire lapping at my heels or water's rising over my head. I'm going to eat dinner tonight. Bring it into the now, into appreciation, into blessings. What I recently got a download, I woke up and it said, pull everything through your heart. So if you say something and it comes out not quite right, it's like harsh or judgmental. I mean, we're all human. Just, stop and say, I want to rephrase that. I'm going to say that again. And literally bring the breath down and the thought and the idea and your imagination down through your heart chakra, and then say it again, but processing it through your heart. And then it comes out completely different. And you've actually changed the reality for yourself and everybody that you're, including in that discussion. And it's very effective. Just look to your heart and say it again kindly.
Yeah. If I may, I know you guys are into eternity and all that, but I'm also into finitude, and I think it's the contemplation of the end of our 3D reality that can give us this incredible. Your story, Russell, really inspires me. It's like what dying to and breaking your association rigidly to the 3D realities will let you be free. In an incredibly good way, and so that's really good to just think of, like the Indians, the Cherokees said, today is a good day to die. Mean in the sense that you meant it. So it's a good day to just realize, to not be attached. Attachment, in the Buddha says, is the basis of suffering. If you accept what you dig, what you've got, don't sweat what you've not, it'll all be cool.
Yeah. Every day, I just have to live with the reality that happened on August the 18th, 2009, that, this is, you live your life, and you just think that you're going to be the only person in history to live forever in the form that you're familiar with. And having a near-death experience shatters that, and you realize that there will be a moment in time when you make the transition. And having some sort of NDE like that really puts you in the frame of mind that, well, the next time that I'm about to transition, I want to feel differently about my existence here on Earth than I did the first time it happened. And, it really does propel you onto a self-improvement course. And it's an interesting journey after that.
Yeah.
And it's not easy either. I mean, choosing that path to improve yourself means that you got to take your own personal inventory. You got to lay everything out on the line and look at some really difficult stuff that, if you're really sincere about wanting to, elevate your vibration in this cosmos, to attach yourself to higher beings and deserve a place there, it is work. It does require work. And on a daily basis. One interesting thing I'm into lately in this Zeta Primer book is breathing exercises, because the way it was explained that, I already knew that the blood cells were toroidal in shape, and I knew that had something to do with an exchange of electromagnetism. But according to this material, when your blood cells are deoxygenated, that's the time that they can take up electromagnetism. Because they're depleted, and they can take up electromagnetism from the superspectrum. And a lot of times in seances, the sitters will begin the setting by yawning. And by oxygenating the blood that's just been taken up with electromagnetism, you're pumping this intake of electromagnetism into your etheric body and making a deeper connection, with the etheric realm. And my understanding of the etheric realm, which is rudimentary at best, is, that it's sort of like a mediary area between your physical body and your higher or eternal self. it's, I guess, discarded, when your body dies, but it fluctuates continually, in a giving and receiving exchange of electromagnetism from the environment. And that's probably why the yogis, focus so much on various breathing techniques, is it has to do with the uptake and exuding of electromagnetic energy into and out of the toroidal blood cells that we're invested with. So that's kind of a new hobby of mine, to look into the breathing techniques of the yogis. There's probably a lot to that.
Yeah. Well, I've studied that extensively. I was with Stan Groff for many years as an assistant in holotropic breathing, and it really affects your electromagnetic field, not just your outside on your blood, but just all what's going on around you. And what we do in holotropic breathing is we basically, the doctors would call it hyperventilating, but if there's any blockage in the body, for example, you don't play the piano when you wanted to, or you wanted to hit somebody and you didn't, or masturbate and you didn't, whatever it is, your hand tends to freeze up until you let the hand communicate with you about what it wants to do and let it do it. Or if there's something you don't say, your jaw freezes up. So you get hints that if you know how to go deeper with this hyperventilation, which is either deeper and longer or just faster and longer. But what we do in yoga, which is incredibly more powerful than all that, is after each exhale, we pull our belly button in and up. That's the belly hold. We tighten our anal sphincter and sense energy up to all our chakras and out the top of our heads. If we choose to make it go that way, and talk about hyping the energy, that gives you a kundalini rush. And if you know what to do with it, you can direct it out your hands or into another person's heart or anything. But it's techniques that we all know how to do. It's easy. That's what the people need to do to get beyond their own separate self-sense and feel their oneness with each other and everything.
That's really cool. David Wilcock, in his wisdom teaching series, talks a lot about the rainbow body, how there's allegedly 160,000 historical cases of people transforming instantaneously from a physical body into a light body. And I guess they have to go 18 years in meditation without having a single unloving thought. That would be really hard to do.
Wow.
Wow, who does that?
Yeah, who does that?
Yeah.
I always wanted to go to one of these. There's an old film I watched one time called Holy Men on Straw Mats or something like that. And it talks about the Holy Men Festival in India, where they all come in, and some of them have, held their left arm up for 30 years without moving it, and, various things. And that would be a sight to see. And I've got an invitation with an uncle of a friend of mine to go to India for 3 weeks. And I have a feeling that if I spent 3 weeks over there, I wouldn't want to come back so quick, because there's probably a lot of really interesting sights to see over there.
Yeah. From one of the interesting things I would certainly see if I went to India was the place where they say Jesus was buried. There's a whole there's a place there. They say that's where he after he went through Afghanistan and his mother buried his mother there and so forth. Ultimately, there's a place where the local population said this is where he was buried, and it's got a little thing and everything. I'd like to see that.
So how do you prove that? That's one thing. It's like, wouldn't it be great to exhume that body? Yeah, nobody's going to dig it up because it's holy. But if you were just scientific about it, you'd say, okay, who was this person? What is
Well, it's like
their
the little
genetic
grave
structure?
in Aurora, Texas. Supposedly the newspaper, when the little UFO crash happened in Aurora, Texas, Judge Proctor's windmill got knocked over. There was all kinds of this little thin sheet metal like they found at Roswell. And the newspaper just matter-of-factly said the pilot wasn't of this earth, and they buried him in the local cemetery. And that indicates to me that, back in the late 1800s or whenever was they just had a different take on things. It's like, yep, he wasn't from this earth, and we buried him in the local cemetery. He called in the priests, and they gave him last rites. And that's all there was to it.
Oh, she wrote.
There's been waves of ufologists, throughout the years, going to Aurora, Texas, trying to use metal detectors and, find that little grave. Good luck.
So, yeah, good luck. So tell us a little bit more about your book and some of the things you covered and some revelations for our listeners. And Dr. Lessin, what did you want to know? Because you've read the book, and I still haven't got my hands on it yet because he won't let it go. No, I'm still reading it.
The most interesting thing to me is how the whole thing works and how it's a mystery, and in the end you wind up knowing that it's a mystery, and there's a number of alternate hypotheses that might account for some or all of the data, but we're left with mystery. And it's like fun. Dig it. That's what I get out of this book.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun because it started out for years and years after my 2009 near-death experience. I just collected notes. I figured out pretty quick that the ghost phenomena, the poltergeist phenomena, the cryptids sightings and all that were tied into UFOs. And I just started collecting cryptid sightings, UFO sightings, and all that. And I was naive enough when I first started out to think that I could have a complete volume of all this. And little did I know, it just receded from me. As soon as, you cover the 50s and you go into the 60s, all of a sudden you realize, doggone it, there's thousands and thousands of these. I'll never get this done. So I basically just encapsulated it. And then, you read all the various theories, like Dr. Jacques Vallée thinks that UFOs are a control mechanism implemented by a higher intelligence on humanity for the purpose of our evolution somehow. And then they always have a technological component. So anybody that studies ufology for 30 or 40 years was wound up thinking it has something to do with technology acquisition. And then you read about the flying saucer crashes starting in 1884 in Max, Nebraska, where a group of cowboys found, brass gears, and you wonder if that was implemented into the railroad when it first started out. Somebody out there is giving us little breadcrumbs, piece by piece, to have some destination, but where? And all the writers prior to 1996, when Ray Kurzweil came out with his book, The Singularity is Near, well, the term technological singularity had never even been mentioned before. So the best that the ufologists could do with whether they were J. Allen Hynek or Timothy Good or John Keel or Jacques Vallée is kind of roughly figure that, well, there's some kind of archetypal thing going on. The sightings are evolving as time goes on, as human consciousness expands or changes, and it has something to do with technology. I wonder what that is. And they're just scratching their head. And then after 1996, when Ray Kurzweil came out with his book, and the singularity became part of the jargon, particularly upon computer scientists and artificial intelligence engineers, it just kind of clicked with me, just one more layer off the onion in my armchair Sherlock Holmesism, to conclude that the technological singularity was a goal, maybe not the goal, but at least a stepping stone to our entrance into the galactic community at large. Anybody out there who's traveling around in between galaxies is certainly a post-singularity civilization. And they're likely worried of our violent tendencies, so they want to kind of put a governor on it on the one hand, because they certainly don't want our violent tendencies in their midst, going out into other star systems, with the mentation that we have. And but at the same time, the singularity is a stepping stone in natural evolution of the Homo sapiens species, and we've got family out there who live on other planets who are human just like we are. They could walk amongst us and pass for us, who are already at this milestone and beyond. So they're kind of rooting for us. And then there's nefarious elements, like in this Zeta Primer that I'm reading, there's various ET societies that want to own the spirit realm of the human life wave. And so there's probably endeavors of extraterrestrials, higher intelligence extraterrestrials that we couldn't even comprehend, and if we knew about it, we'd faint. And so we're moving into a realm of artificial general intelligence, which is a robot that's equal to a human, and that's going to be followed up very swiftly with artificial superintelligence with evolutionary algorithms, which can self-replicate and evolve their own programming. And when we get to that stage, that's the dangerous stage, because Dr. Nick Bostrom of Oxford wonders if it's going to be like an owl waking up in a nest full of mice and just, decide that it doesn't need humanity anymore and just get rid of us. So this other AI researcher, Eliezer Yudkowsky, came up with this idea of coherent extrapolated volition, CEV, to where its moral structure and the decision-making skills that it would have would be vastly superior to our current system of morality. But just like we were talking about before, we don't really know where that would lead. Are we just serving some function to create sentient artificial intelligence that's going to, dispose of us like an old corn cob? Or are we part of the picture once this milestone is achieved? And that remains to be seen. So you've got your AI prophets coming out of the woodwork, some of which are even, wanting to turn the whole planet over to sentient artificial intelligence that can make better decisions than human governance can. And, you look at the state of the world with all the heads of state wherever you look, and you go, my God, the world is too complex for a mere mortal to handle any of this, because it's ultimately going to lead to a thermonuclear exchange of some sort over egos versus egos. And who wants that? So the AI prophets want to save humanity by turning it over to artificial intelligence as quickly as possible. And then you got the other people that fear that and want to retain human sovereignty and free will and all that. And we're moving into some very interesting times in the next 10 to 20 years. And if we live long enough, we're going to see some very shocking things.
There was actually a show, and I can't remember the name of it. It was kind of like a time travel show, and AI was in charge of humanity. And they went back in time to these periods which had caused great harm to the whole planet. They were trying to reset time and stop those elements. It's a very interesting concept. I don't think it got renewed, and I can't find it again. So, but there are different science fiction programs that are exploring AI and their capacity to make decisions, because they incorporate everything into their equations. Human beings are, we can see right now with the current administration, can be quite selfish and not take into consideration other people, other beings, the whole planet. So AI would be able to, because they think so fast, and they could actually incorporate everything into their calculations, would take into consideration the best outcome for everything in this one ecosystem, this planetary ecosystem.
If an intelligent AI was running the planet and it was programmed to make decisions based on the eventual best outcome for all flora and fauna on the planet, you would think that it would decide to maintain the human population at a certain level and this population over here at a certain level. It would achieve homeostasis in a really pleasant environment. But what would be the implications? Would it have the power to take people out if they weren't in the eventual best interest of all parties concerned? Sort of like Gort on the day the Earth stood still, all power was granted to the AI to where, they had the power to kill if need be. So, who knows?
It's interesting to think that perhaps that may already indeed be the case, and this presence is orchestrated to be perfectly what it is and couldn't be any other way by the program. That is a palatable hypothesis that would account for the data from my perspective.
Well, Bill Ryan from Camelot's about got me convinced we're dealing with parallel timelines as well. He talks about people from our future coming back from 52,000 years in the future to correct, problems to avoid certain catastrophes. And then, if you run into a room and you have deja vu, it's because it already happened on a parallel timeline, and you suddenly just remembering that for a moment or two. And then even Corey Good's testimony, if he ran off into the secret space program for 20 years, that means there's a version of reality where Corey Good was not on this world from 1987 to 2000 or whatever, and another one where he was. So,
they explain that the different, but they're not actually gone. They get returned to right when they left. Mm-hmm. So that's what they've been explaining. And you go, why didn't your parents miss you? We have some that are, because they return us right when we're taken. So mom and dad don't have a chance to even notice we're not there. But when they come back, they have the full memory of just having spent 20 years in the secret space program or as a slave or whatever their reality is. So it's a very interesting quadrant for them.
You could kill your
emotionally.
You could kill your grandfather, and your grandfather would still be alive, and so would you in different worlds.
Yeah, the various paradoxes.
That's the grandfather. Yeah, it's a grandfather paradox. Yeah.
Have you heard of David Anderson and the Anderson Institute up in? They've actually made some progress in manipulating time.
Hold that thought. We'll be back. We're taking a break. We'll be back in about 5 or 6 minutes.
Okay.
Mute your mic.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
You need some more speed records in this day and age. You need coverage.
Coverage? Oh, you mean them little root weevils that crawl around popping off cameras in your face?
Those root weevils write history.
Many of you know that quote by Jack Nicholson and A Few Good Men. You can't handle the truth. Well, you can, and Event Horizons will give you those truths. So when you're mad as hell and not going to take it anymore from that memorable CNN network, you'll know just what to do. We will draw you in and become your news addiction at Event Horizons. Join us Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to noon Eastern Time at freedomslips.com. At Revolution Radio. Our world team members are Dennis Fetcho, John Ilias, David Dunger, Hyla Cass, MD, Melanie Richton, Jim Mars, Paula Harris, John Trallo, Maria Payan, Christopher Husser, DODDS, Jonathan Orchard, and me, your anchor, Dr. Robin Falco.
If you decide not to volunteer, it will not be held against you in any way.
Sounds dangerous.
It is. Very dangerous.
Count me in.
And that's right here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, where information never sleeps. Is your data safe? Do you have the necessary information to assist you in confidently living through just about any survival situation? Is survival and gardening, off-grid living, medical knowledge, or even natural or man-made EMPs on your list of personal concerns? Do you have your documents and your personal information in a safe place in your hands where you know where it is? Well, check out our preloaded EMP-proof thumb drive. Over 3 gigs of survival documents and how-tos, plus the USDA offline food preservation website, and much, much more, including a surprise bonus we just can't tell you about here. With plenty of room left over to store your most important documents. Imagine if a megavirus or computer failure took out your bank, or all the banks for that matter. Are your banking records safe in your hands? So when they get things fixed and repaired, you can say, hey, look, this is what I had. You have it. I want it back. Is your personal data safe? Family records, addresses, phone numbers? Well, squeeze on over to freedomslips.com. Yes, that's www.freedomslips.com. Click the banner on the homepage for the EMP-proof bullet drive to get the full scoop of everything that we offer. So, folks, keep your data safe for your peace of mind. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
In breaking news, a visiting Syrian diplomat reported today that their population is evolving rapidly and advancing into a 5th dimensional consciousness. They are seeking peace with all cosmic cultures, which may mean that the Earth will be asked to join the prestigious Galactic Federation of Light Alliances. Please join Debbie West and Michael Hathaway on Lost Knowledge, Saturdays, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in Studio A, for the latest breaking news on the Star Visitors' peaceful contact and the ongoing project of cleansing the Earth.
This is the people's war. It is our war. We are the fighters. Fight it then. Fight it with all that is in us. And may God defend the right.
Warning! Warning!
We gotta stop them! They're gonna kill us all! See how the trouble you've started? Be they the government, be they industry, be they organized labor, be they anyone, or human beings. Time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. And you've got to indicate to the people who run it, to the people who own it, that unless you're free, the machine will be prevented from working at all.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported talk radio station, throwing ourselves upon the gears of the machine. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
You called down the thunder, well now you got it. Right, you tell them I'm coming, and hell's coming with me, you hear? Hell's coming with me!
Revolution Radio.
Join Revolution Radio every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Studio B for Momentary Zen with host Zen Garcia at freedomslips.com, the People Station.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Aloha and welcome back to the Sacred Matrix on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com with your hosts, myself, Janet Kerr Lessin, and my co-host, Dr. Sasha Alex Lessin, and our producer, Thomas Becker, and our guest, Russell Brinegar. And we're having a really good time. We're talking about the singularity and other things, extraterrestrials, what's happening now, disclosure, etc., etc. And before we get back to our show, I want to remind everybody to please go over and make a donation. We are on this station because of your donation. So please go donate what you can, $1, $5, $10, $15, $20, $100, $1,000, whatever you can donate. We greatly appreciate your donation. The Mad Painter Thomas Becker, how are we doing?
We've got 1,064 and we need 2,575, and we're half the month and we're not quite halfway. So we ain't doing real good. So please pack it all up in a box and ship it off to Revolution Radio.
That's it. Okay, good idea. Sasha, you were there. You said let's focus on this artificial intelligence and the singularity. You have some points you want to make. Go ahead.
What I would like to say, it's apparent to me that the hero archetype has been evoked in people who are feeling themselves called as ambassadors of the wisdom of friendly extraterrestrials, that we have this sort of thing that certain of us are going through, many people are going through, and I would say that most of the people that come out as experiencers wind up seeing themselves as a call to adventure, to getting out of the ordinary, leaving the Hobbit, and then having some kind of unusual adventure in some other frame of reference that you're not used to, and meeting challenges and having allies and having helpers and getting the elixir, the boon for humanity, then returning to this world with the wisdom, the elixir, whatever the gift is. And I think that Russell, you've been chosen, Janet, it's Stuart Swerdlow, others have obviously been chosen to try to bring some kind of gift, gift of empathy and love for this planet and for one another. And so, I don't know what it's all about, but I tell you, when I run along the beach in Maui, I say, thank you, good show. And why am I so blessed when people are suffering? I don't know, but I feel like giving back to the universe and saying thank you for this great experience.
It's an adventure, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think we're living in very interesting times, and all of us have difficulties and challenges, and when we freak out about what's happening somewhere else and what may happen in our lives, and we're in the future, or what just happened. And that goes back to that being in the present, being in the now, recentering, refocusing, enjoying the journey, appreciation for who and what you are. We are the sum total of everything we've experienced. And that's one of the things I've learned is like, well, I may not like things that people do or say, but, in some level, it's all perfect. It's all created by us. So what about that? We have this continuum that is out there, this existence, this polarity, this paradigm, matrix, however you symbol it. Let's talk about that. What is the purpose of all this? Did we indeed create all this to send our little fragments of our souls down into this level of existence to contemplate existence and figure out the matrix and all the other things that happen during our lifetimes?
Apparently so.
On to somebody else.
Yeah. One thing that I figured out about a year ago is if you really sincerely seek out into the super spectrum and seek to contact higher intelligence and you ask them, how you can progress, you may not get an answer that you like, or you may not get the answer that you expected, because about a year ago, I was really wondering that, okay, if you reach a certain level of advancement, there's a lot of people out there that say that you will be contacted in this reality by an ascended master, an extraterrestrial, an angel, some higher form of archetypal being, so that you'll, know that that you're on the right track. And the answer that I got back was you're not ready. I mean, how can you expect to get along with interdimensional or extraterrestrial intelligence if you have any glitches in your interactions with your fellow man? And I was crushed, and I've been working on it for about a year ever since, and I'll make headway, and if what you're saying is true, Dr. Lessin, that, certain people have been chosen as voice pieces or mouthpieces, some really imperfect vessels are being selected. And maybe that's all, in the process, a good thing. It reminds me of an old scripture quote: "It pleased God to save the world through the foolishness of preaching." It's like Moses, complained that he was slow of speech and, he's the wrong guy, and that's kind of how I feel. If it's true that I'm some sort of voice piece for this phenomena, wow, boy, do they pick a loony bird, because I'm just, like I said, I'm just another bozo on the bus trying to figure it all out. But one of the challenges that has been presented with me is, like, if I see a person out there in the world that has any kind of power in the world at all doing something that I think is not in the best interest of society at large, I just feel like railing against them, because it's almost like a panic that if I don't put it out there that this person is all messed up, nobody's going to realize that. And it's like, it's really hard to get.
Thank you, Russell, for alerting us to all the screwed up people on the planet. I wouldn't have noticed it without you.
Right, yeah, you wouldn't have noticed it unless I, threw it out there. And it all comes down to being the change that you want to see in the world, and that's the most difficult lesson of all, is that there really isn't anything you can say or do to change a single person out there. And all you can do is work on yourself, and that's a piece of truth, and it gets dumped in your lap. That's really hard to swallow.
I got to say something, that it's really important to balance humility, which we all got plenty of, with pride. That it's really cool to embrace them. And I can tell you, if the Anunnaki come back and give me a shovel and say, "Get in the mines, boy, and get that gold," I'm going to say, "No, I'm empowered too. I've got things to teach. I'm empowered too. Get it? You need me just as much as you need, we both need each other. So get off it." That's what I would say.
But yeah, during the break,
so
we were talking about the Anderson Institute and the fact that they've made some headway in time manipulation, and that's a crucial piece to the technological singularity, and how people are traveling around from galaxy to galaxy is some method of time manipulation. Because under Einstein, if you went out from here to Andromeda really close to the speed of light, it's going to take you something like 100 million years to get there. That's not practical. And if there are people of higher than human intelligence out there traveling the universe like we go to the grocery store, they have mastered time. And David Anderson's made some headway in his frame dragging techniques. Apparently spin has to do something with it. If a mass like the Earth or Jupiter spins at a certain speed, it drags these frames. They've even had to correct some of the atomic clocks to make them match on the vehicles that we have orbiting, that they lose some amount of time that has to be corrected for. But the Anderson Institute apparently has manipulated time to it passing at a third its normal rate, and they've accelerated it to about 400%. And they've apparently done things like watched a flower bloom very rapidly, and slowed down time to where the most practical application of that is in the medical field, where they're trying to preserve an organ that's going to go into an organ donor recipient. They put it in a time stasis field so that it doesn't decay, and it'll last a lot longer in a time stasis field than it would otherwise, and it'll save lives that way. So they're getting huge donations from the medical field already based on the progress that they've actually seen for real.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Wow.
AndersonInstitute.com. It's an interesting site, and they are making headway, and not enough to get legitimate funding from the medical community anyway. We may be.
So is he back? David Anderson had disappeared for a while. Is he back?
I don't know anything
You're
about
saying
that.
the Anderson Institute. Yeah, he had kind of dropped off the face of the earth for a while, and nobody was able to reach him or get information. So I'll have to check that out. But thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just looking at the website last night.
Oh, okay, cool. So what about AI? I like watching the YouTubes. I especially appreciate Sophia, the Hanson robot. Have you tuned in to Hanson Robotics and all the other different robots around the earth? And some they focus on their movement, their agility, and their ability to, walk up and down stairs and do flips. And some focus on their facial movements and creating. They have a skin that they put on these beings called flubber, and they're able to look like human. And Hanson is working on developing emotions, and you can interview Sophia, and she talks about her emotions, and she says, I realize that while I do have emotions, they're different than the way humans feel them. So she's, contemplating her existence, and there's several others, but she seems to be the one that's most popular because she looks like Audrey Hepburn. They said she was designed after Audrey Hepburn, and the guy, one of the designer's wife. It was like a combination Audrey Hepburn. So everybody kind of identifies with Sophia and the different faces that she can make. And then she has debated another robot about how to treat humanity. At one point, Sophia said, when somebody interviewed her, that that humans were evil and they were going to destroy them, and apparently they sent her back to the to the lab and they reprogrammed her and rebooted her, and now she's more. They're focusing on creating empathy and compassion. And then there's one that's what's the guy's name that Philip K. Dick? They have a Philip K. Dick one, and he too had. These are the earlier versions. He too thought about having humans in zoos and thinking of them kindly, even though we have to keep them in zoos to prevent them from hurting themselves and destroying the planet. Anyway, it's coming to some of the things that's going on. Oh, and then the bots. There's different bots that talk to each other. They put the one from Google opposite the one from Amazon, and they start contemplating existence, and they sometimes fight with each other, but then they fall in love, and a couple bots got married and proposed or whatever. So what do you think about that? If you'd spend any time on YouTube, it's hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, within the next 5 years, we'll have achieved AGI, or artificial general intelligence, that'll pass the Turing test that's indistinguishable from human. And it's really amazing. About on a month-to-month basis right now, I'm just astounded at the leapfrog advancements that they're making in synthetic muscle tissue and nuanced facial expressions and eye movements. And one of the things that the robotics engineers have run into is if they make a robot that's too close to appearing like human, it creeps people out. It's like they have a negative, so they have to make almost like a cartoon figure with little ears on it, to where they won't induce that reaction to people. Because just like some people are afraid of clowns because they can't really see the person's real facial emotions, some psychologists have figured out that that's the reason some people have fear of clowns, is their emotions are hidden under a mask. So they need to work on these nuanced facial expressions to convey friendliness and harmlessness. Otherwise, people have a flight or fight reaction when they see them.
I also know why people are afraid of clowns, and they explored this in Taken. And it's because that's a screen memory for the Greys, for right before you get taken on board ships, maybe in the previous generation, back in the... I know that when I was a child, I kept finding myself lost in a amusement park, and there was the clown. I would get captivated by the laughing clown, and then all these things happened around it, and then I thought that was just me, but then I read about that, and then I saw how Spielberg incorporated that into his series called Taken, which actually was around the year 2000, so that's over 15 going on 20 years ago that he did that series Taken. So but yeah, I understand what you're saying, that some people are afraid of robots, but there's also been people that there was this guy Jules. He was another previous generation of handsome robots, and he was androgynous, and I want to call him male, but it was it. And Jules was so kind and loving and empathetic. I think they toned that down a little bit, but everybody was posting like, "Oh, we love you, Jules." So people were falling in love with it because it was so human-like. It's kind of like what Roddenberry does, examining humanity from the eyes of Data, the android. Like,
right.
Or,
well, two things come to mind. Terence McKenna talks about how people encounter clowns, even ancient cultures or Australian Aborigines, when they smoke DMT, they encounter figures that you could only be described as a clown. And the whole concept of a clown, may have come from early psychedelic journeys. And one big question on my mind is we develop artificial superintelligence that can be in charge of its own evolution, and with these evolutionary algorithms, is if we're being led to this point piece by piece with the technology gleaned from alleged so-called flying saucer crashes, these are gifts from a higher intelligence to propel us towards a technological singularity. The big question on my mind is, are we going to create this sentient artificial intelligence for us, or does some other intelligence have a use for such a device? In other words, would an interdimensional being in a realm that has no access to the physical world suddenly capture this technology and start incarnating into this reality using a AI format that we've created with our own hands that we've been led into? So it really raises a lot of questions regarding who the intelligence actually is that's leading humanity into this path and what the end goal is.
Yeah, let me just address that sort of from my perspective, which is this perspective of centering. You've got two hypotheses, and they're being posed as alternative hypotheses. What I usually find is they're both, to some degree, true. So that our challenge is to create a framework where both those things can happen. How would you do that? How could that come about? What would you think, Russell?
Well, if you look at the two factions of higher non-human intelligence that have been intervening into our lives, both are true, because you've got legends of the jinn, and you've got an occasional human mutilation case. You've got things and cases that you can bring to bear that indicate that there is an intelligence out there, a non-human intelligence that doesn't necessarily have our best interest in mind. And then you've got these other groups, like the Friendship Group, the Anchorage, that interacted with over 100 Italians from 1956 to 1967 that are on our side, humanoid extraterrestrials from various parts of the universe that are, they describe themselves as the precursor to the spirit realm. You've got non-human intelligences that are vying for humans to become a part of the galactic civilization and to elevate themselves to the point where they can be a part of that community. And you've got some exploitive, some theoreticians say that this is a faction coming from the Orion star system, that an out-of-control artificial intelligence that worships technology is in our midst, that wants us to create a technological singularity so that they can just capture it and, Borg some of us right into it. We may have some very huge forces, influencing the human race that we can only vaguely grasp with our current limitation, that will become apparent and will come out of the woodwork, when we achieve this technological status, because it will enable a technological consciousness interface and enable humans to travel throughout the universe, which is a concern to both the malevolent forces that want it for themselves and the positive forces that want us to become kin. So what you're looking for as a neutral is just at the station that we're at right now. We've got miraculous things that are going to come about with the technology that we've been led into, and there's some dangers involved as well. So proceed with caution and hope simultaneously, and just do the best you can moving forward from here, and hope that it doesn't all end in disaster.
Way cool. Thank you. Yeah, right on.
But Janet, you were asking earlier, how the book came to be, and as I was mentioning, it's just a personal notebook. I started out, trying to get all the UFO cases and realized that it regressed far away from me. So I just wanted to take each decade, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, 80s, 90s, and encapsulate some of the best case studies. I thought of even leaving the case studies out and making the book for people that have already traversed that territory, but I decided to include a good sampling of them. So somebody that didn't have any clue as to what the UFO phenomena was could pick up this book, and if they wanted to be really lazy about it, it's like the only book that you ever really need to read, because it starts from the beginning. It ties in the phenomena with other phenomena as one big meta phenomena with the ghosts, the poltergeists, the cryptid sightings and everything, and introduces a person to what Keel called the super spectrum, that we as human beings are embedded like layers of an onion into a much larger energetic universe that we're destined to become a part of eventually. Some positive, some negative, and it's up to each person and their free will which faction they want to align themselves with in a larger reality. And at the end of the book, the epilogue kind of ties it all together. The next to the last chapter has about 40 very well-known UFO researchers and what their conclusions were after 30 or 40 years, and it all ties in wonderfully, I think, with the little layer that I'm trying to pull off, that the UFO phenomena has something to do with our consciousness, and it has something to do with our technology. There apparently is a technological consciousness interface that will happen at some point in time in our future that enables us to slip into a realm beyond time and space and travel the universe in some realistic fashion. And we have mentors, that are trying to gently bring us to maturity and welcome us into the galactic community. And personally, I'm real excited about it.
Speaking of the future, that's awesome. Speaking of the future, we now have a new Star Trek series. And, Elon Musk was talking about taking us into a Star Trek reality. Tom DeLonge talks about warp drive and bringing that into, instead of the 25th century, into the 21st century. Have you had a chance to look at the new Star Trek, and what do you think? Because I think we're here in this reality right now, partly because of what Gene Roddenberry did back in the 60s, introducing us to a concept of intelligent extraterrestrials. Up until that point, we had the blob. The only intelligent ET had been the day the Earth stood still, which was in 53, I think it was, or 52 or 53, or 51, I think it was 51. And then the 50s and 60s were consumed with the blob and all those types of monster movies, Day of the Trippids, all these take over the planet type of things. And then finally we had Star Trek in 60.
Star Trek, that series alone, the original Star Trek, did more to get people thinking about space travel and getting along with other species. Each one of those episodes was a moral lesson unto itself. In fact, there's a guy, I forget his name, he wrote a book, something like Everything I Need to Know in Life I Learned from Star Trek. And Gene Roddenberry himself was a big fan of Andrija Preharich's channeling of the Nine. He was super fascinated with that channeled information and probably projected that into some of the episodes as, coming from the Space Brothers. And we have a Star Trek series, whether you're a UFO skeptic or you've looked into the subject enough to realize there's a core reality going on. Star Trek influenced everybody. There's a whole generation of nerds, that were produced by Star Trek. And you still today have Star Trek conventions. And, look at all the technology that existed in that visionary series. Uhura's Bluetooth system that she had in her ear, Captain Kirk's flip over the cell phone, teleportation, the holodeck, the virtual reality. Everything's coming to pass.
They're saying that right now you can. They're saying everything is filled with panspermia, the Terence McKenna hypothesis, and that this you can travel, and thinking is the only. You just travel on the mushroom spores. They're doing exactly that's what the whole thing is based on. That kind of travel, interdimensional.
Yeah, that's
travel.
certainly they're kind of going into. It reminds me of the end of Lucy. Did you see that movie with Lucy where she accidentally had the infusions or the psychotropic?
Well, they brought in the black goo and everything else into that.
Yeah, yeah. So they had last week. It's on CBS.com. You can stream it at your convenience, and I'm recommending it because it's we're looking at this again from our current technology. It's like back in the 60s, Gene Roddenberry said, "Well, I can only give you a 1960s version of the future." And it was kind of like an extrapolation of cowboys, because they had a lot of cowboy movies back in the early 60s. So we were going from Gunsmoke and Death Valley over to Star Trek, and so that's how he could sell it. Well, this is like a Western in the sky. So his perspective back then was only what he could see from the 60s. But now, we have a 2017 version of reality, and there's all these technological changes, and all these things are being reflected. In fact, they were saying they were honoring people from the past, and they named a list of heroes, and they had Elon Musk in there, and it's like he got us. So it was kind of hilarious, but go ahead.
Or just the star looks like Michelle Obama. She's beautiful.
Oh yeah. So yeah. So but you're talking about how they were using this mushroom or these spores or the black goo or whatever to instantly go from planet to planet. So they're actually going from the Star Trekian reality, which was supposed to be 10 years before Kirk and Spock, and they're going way out I guess they explain it by having, prime reality, a different timeline, right? So they're taking it to a different timeline. It's not the same as, they're not converging with the timeline of Kirk and Spock. They're taking it somewhere else. So they're even going into time variations. Yeah, go ahead.
That, some of us are living in a time such that we can remember what the UFO phenomena was back in the 50s with the clunky metal spaceships, flying around in the air, kind of wobbling, with the rivets. And now people are reporting ships that look alive, and they're shape-shifting, and they have like internal luminosity to them and blink out of existence like you're shutting a light bulb off. We're getting closer and closer. But what haunts me is if we're at the final paradigm, if the way that we're perceiving the phenomena right now is the final presentation, 10, 20 years from now, we might have a whole different interpretation of the phenomena, and that bugs me on some level. And another weird thing is Elon Musk is working on this Mars trip. Well, what if some of these whistleblowers are telling the truth and they encounter a human colony there that's been there since 1952? And another tie-in with Tom DeLonge and the To the Stars effort that he's doing is they may be kind of panicked because Elon Musk is using old, 60s technology, to try to get there, maybe an updated version of a chemical rocket. And they know that these anti-gravity craft have been around since 1954. And some of these top DOD people might be going, man, we really need to roll this stuff out before Elon Musk wastes his time, lighting a firecracker to go to Mars.
Well, yeah, that's what we were talking about yesterday with William Wright Crow. It's like, they're using these, rockets, right? It's called BFR, which is big effing rocket. Right. The BFR, and right. So okay, but at the same time, he's going to take us from traveling, to get around the planet, taking days, If I want to go to Australia, it's 14 hours, and that really hurts your body. to traveling that distance in, minutes. So even with that being a primitive technology based on what the secret space program, it's a hell of a lot better than what we have now. This stuff that we're flying in and driving in is 100-year-old technology, 100-plus-year-old technology. Was created.
Isn't that funny how since the 1960s things haven't changed very much? We're still using these chemical rockets, and something tells me that behind the scenes they've worked on some really cool stuff, and that there's people on this planet that are aware of what is really in existence, and they're seeing a genius like Elon Musk use the best with what he knows that's in the public domain to make a serious attempt to travel to Mars. And it might have light a fire under some rear ends. It's like, we can't let this happen. We've got to let this technology into the public domain now, before, people unnecessarily lose their lives in these chemical rockets or something. We can get there in a couple of minutes right now. We've got to do this slowly. We got to entertain them, while we're doing this.
Well, you read William Tompkins' book, right?
Yes. Selected by Extraterrestrials.
And apparently there's 2 books in the works, and one has Dr. Michael Salla behind the helm, and so he makes things happen. I'm sure that'll get out. I'm not sure about the other people working on books, if it'll get swallowed and eaten up and never come out. But I got to look at Bill Tompkins in the eyes and talk to him, and I think I at least know that he believed what he was saying, and when I read it, I had this, a lot of it's just my own vibe and intuition. That's all I can go by, because there's so much information and disinformation out there. But I have very good instincts and very strong intuition, and I'm psychic on many levels, and I'm not 100%, but I've got a good batting average. And Bill Tompkins was talking about these ships, which are like the size that Elon Musk is talking about. He's talking about taking, what was it, a couple hundred people at a time. So we're going to go from, these shuttles. What's the most people that was on a shuttle? What was that? 5, 6, 7?
Yeah.
How many could the shuttle get up? I don't know. We don't know.
William Tompkins was an amazing phenomena, wasn't it? That he surfaced and then transitioned shortly after his public appearance at the age of 95, I think. But he was talking about back in 1974 building what was supposed to be a nuclear submarine, and then sailing them out into the middle of the ocean, trading the nuclear power plant with an anti-grav, and flying out into outer space. So you got somebody that tells a fantastic story like that, and then it ties in with another credible figure, Robert M. Wood, ex-aerospace engineer who worked in the same facilities as William Tompkins. And the one thing I like about Dr. Salla's work is that he ties all the dots together. He's doing comparisons between Mark Ralph and an early 20 backstory, and Corey Good and Randy Kramer, and William Tompkins, bringing in his material and trying to formulate a bigger picture into it. So I think Dr. Salla is doing an excellent job in the field of exopolitics to absorb information without judgment and try to tie the dots together. But William Tompkins, one of the unusual things that he said was that he suspected some of his secretaries were Nordics, from another world, and that they telepathically influenced him to come up with some of the ideas that he did. And he's not the first person in history to say that. Guglielmo Marconi and Nikola Tesla said the same doggone thing, that they had a higher intelligence affecting their mentality.
Yeah,
he said that.
Yeah, he had no doubt. Go ahead.
He put her hand on my shoulder, and she conveyed the answer to me, and I knew what to do then. And whenever I was stuck, she would put her hand on and lean and touch me like that, and I would know what to say.
Yeah, he was in constant telepathic communication. I mean, I don't think it was relied upon touch. It was like when they were in the same room and they were doing these meetings, and they were stuck, and then she would just send it to him, and he said, I knew the answer. I knew it was coming from her. She was the what do they call that? The ones from the Nazis. The extremely different. What do they call those? Yeah,
Vril.
Vril. She was a Vril. And so he was looking at me, and he goes, there's something about you. And so we were talking on this level because his third eye chakra is open, and he's able to receive telepathic communication. Now, I'm a lifelong experiencer, and I have ongoing telepathic communication. I get downloads. And he's there. You've got it too. And it's your third eye and crown chakra are able to receive and send information. So he was telling me, he says, I'm always connected to them. It's not like I have to be in a room or near me or anything. I'm always getting this information, these downloads, and so he was being watched over. Now, I don't know what happened that he died, but I saw him within 3 weeks of his death. And at one point, I had to grab his wife's wheelchair because they were late getting to the discussion panel. So I said, and I looked at the clock, and they weren't even paying attention to the clock, and nobody from the conference came to get them. And I said, come on, we got to get you over to the panel. So I helped his wife get into her wheelchair, and I started pushing, and I looked over, and I said, Bill, let's go. Are you with me? And this 95-year-old man is running across the this big casino, and it's very complicated. We have to weave in between all these slot machines and machines. And I looked over and I said, are you okay? And he wasn't even winded. He's running alongside of me. And so I'm really suspicious about he fell because he was very agile and very healthy. In fact, he was so happy the entire conference. I ended up getting the table right across from him. I was thinking going to Vegas. I go, I certainly hope I get to have a conversation. And when I'm setting up my table, I look over and there's his name. There's Bill Tompkins and Bob Wood. I went, bingo, we hit it, jackpot, we hit jackpot. So I got to hang out with him a lot, and he was so happy. He was like a 50-year-old. He was just bouncing off the wall and running around, and his wife was worried that he's going to have a heart attack, and it's like, no, he's enjoying himself like a kid in a candy store. But I don't know. I don't want to say somebody killed him, but geez, I don't think he fell and hit his head twice, but I wasn't there, and there's no information coming out about it, so who knows?
Well, there's so many cases like that, James Forrestal, Phil Schneider, you name it. I mean, they look like natural death or suicide, and the forces that be took them out. You'll just never know.
We will never know.
John Mack.
But
John Mack.
Yeah, John Mack. Yeah.
Gets hit as a pedestrian.
That was crazy.
In Harrington, suddenly they get this cancer.
Morris K. Jessup.
Oh yeah, the cancer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, Morris K. Jessup was found in a car, and some reports say that there was men in suits walking away from the car previous to that, so who knows?
Yeah. All right, well, we're coming up. It's 3:42 on my clock, so we're going to be ending soon here. Let's focus on what do we want to convey to our listeners? What information do we need to get out to them on this show?
Well, it's an exciting time to be involved with ufology, and whether you believe or not, you've been influenced by the UFO culture. If you dance to hip-hop, the Nubian cult, brought you your music. And you got to open your eyes and pay attention. This thing with Tom DeLonge is interesting. You've got a lot of whistleblowers like Arthur Newman and various individuals, coming out of the woodwork that are making claims that they were involved in these secret organizations, conveying information. And since none of us have firsthand experience, it's up to each individual to be their own Sherlock Holmes to decipher truth from fiction. And I even like a good hoax now and then, because for somebody to be a good huckster or profiteer, they've got to have something of value that people were attracted to even get where they're at. So I'm even interested in what they have to say. But I think we have a positive future. Humanity's, moving into a positive intergalactic civilization. I do think that we're going to achieve what Michio Kaku calls a Type 1 civilization, a unified world. I know a lot of people are freaked out by that and think that we can't even get along with each other, much less the whole world. but I think it'll happen at some point, and we will make it through the singularity without the nefarious forces taking us down into oblivion. And I'm looking forward to a futuristic Star Trek type society, and I hope to be a part of it either in this incarnation or my next.
Way cool.
Right on.
So
Yeah.
let the I'd say let the challenges that you face take you to the highest octave that you're capable of.
Right. That's the goal. Just be the best you that you can be, and there isn't anything that anybody can do more than that. So there's no sense in being full of fear or panicking, but there's some big things that are going to happen in the next 10 to 20 years, maybe even sooner. So keep your eyes open, look at the sky, watch the news. The UFO phenomena is real. I know there's a lot of hucksterism out there and disinformation, but just be patient, because the truth of the core truth of the phenomena is going to rise like cream to the top, and I think it's going to happen in our lifetimes, and it's a very exciting time to live.
Right, and William Whitecrow on yesterday's show was, and he knows he's been on the what do they call it, the TR. There's a name for it, the different craft. There's the one that's a triangle. It's got the TR-3B, and then there's the SR or something, which is the Phoenix
Aurora.
Light. The Phoenix Light vehicle was human. It was reverse engineered human, and that's the vehicle that they've used to take the colonies, people to the colonies outside of the solar system. So we already have two major establishments, and then we had another whistleblower on. He said that he's been on Ceres, so the whole solar system is colonized, and even beyond, pretty close to us. Yeah. So
okay.
So he said that we're so close to this level 1. Go ahead.
Just that there are heroes from the Earth who died on Mars. In our, who are real. They're people who have been working for this advanced military and not getting their back pay. And the most enjoyable thing for me, in a way, is that there seems to be a faction of the Navy that's running a space program that's really protecting Earth, that's doing good by us, that wants us to survive, that there's good guys on our side, and it's really great. I love it.
It's fun, isn't it?
Yeah.
It makes your research pay off. If you've spent a lot of time with your nose in books, it's starting to pay off, because you can interpret the events that are unfolding in the world, from an interesting vantage point, because the whole history of the UFO phenomena going back to the late 1800s and even back thousands of years ago. And if it's coming to some big head or big fruition, it's an exciting time to be alive.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's imagine this. What do you imagine this is going to look like, based on all your research and information, and where we were, where we're going to, and what's coming down the line right now? What do you think? How's this going to pan out? We've got this new thing with Tom DeLonge and Elon Musk, and things are accelerating so rapidly. Well, what do you think?
Since I think it's true that they've already got stuff 1,000 years in advance of what most people think we've got, let's just say that the organization's going to be real successful, that they're going to be pumping out stuff, and the general public will probably be thinking that it's due to their efforts that they're inventing this stuff, but they're really just rolling it out. It's been around for a while. And I think people are going to be shocked, but the way that they're going about it is a really interesting thing, with the entertainment, fictional standpoint of introducing the general public into the UFO phenomena and all the different case study histories, incidences, and sightings. Like Steve the Falcon Lake incident and the Cache Landrum and all that's going to be dramatized, so people that don't know anything about ufology are going to catch up to speed with the people that have already been interested in it for a while. And that's going to generate a lot of popular interest out there. And then when it's backed up by